Powerful. Thank you so much, Dale and Marcy. Thank you. Today we pick up where we left off last Sunday, opening our hearts and our minds to the greater and even greater possibilities that are always available for us. Because here's a spiritual truth. We are all in and always in an evolutionary growth cycle, which means that no matter how available we are to the experience, the fullness of God, to that fullness of God, there is more. There is always more. We don't arrive at a place and I always do this, but that's the way it feels, and stop. We're always getting thrown those curveballs, aren't we? I mean, I love those curveballs. They just come at you. But again, it's a matter of, just got whacked with one. It's a matter of perception. It's how do we perceive it? How are we going to move through it? And what am I to learn from yet another experience? Because they're limitless. So since we are finite beings, there is an infinite essence within us that is always wanting to express. As I said last week, growing up, we all learned about our five senses, right? We all learned about the taste, touch, smell, hearing, sight. But last week we delved into three of what I'm calling the mental faculties, our senses. There are 6 senses that kind of were drummed out of us or ignored, most of us, not everyone, but you'll see which ones they were when you were growing up. But they're always present. They're always there for us. So these three, the three we did last week, and then I have a big long story that goes with it. I was going to tell you about Genevieve Beran, if you remember those that were here last week. So we're going to talk about that, but we put them into the context, the 3 that we saw, that we didn't see. The 3 that we talked about last week, we're putting them in the context of calling them into service for our greater expansion and our greater growth. So what were they? Remember Ernest Holmes' words, and this was on page 151 in the Science of Mind textbook, the pent-up energy of life and the possibility of further human evolution work through our imagination and will. Just 2 of them. And as I said last week, this is very similar to a racehorse when it gets to the gate and is pent in, and it's waiting, and it's trained, and it's waiting, and it's waiting to get through that gate, but it's waiting for the bell and the gate to open. And last week we talked about how our imagination is that bell. And the minute our imagination starts, we can just go full force. You can dream it, you can achieve it. So this pent-up energy of spirit is waiting to be expressed within each and every one of us. It's our beingness, our imagination, and our will. Our imagination opens it, and our will is what we follow it through with. It keeps us on track. It keeps, even when we might not want to, we have options. We can stay stuck, or we can find what the greater good is. How do I move forward and deal with yet another situation in life? And we use our intuition. That is the God within us guiding us along the way. When we listen to that intuitive voice, it's never wrong. But sometimes this mind voice, the ego voice, is so much louder, it seems, to our thoughts than that indwelling, intuitive voice. Holmes wrote in Science of Mind, intuition is God in us, revealing to us the realities of being. And just as instinct guides the animal, so would intuition guide us, if we would allow it to do so. And so I promised that I would tell the Genevieve Beran story because it's all about her listening to her intuition. And this is from a book, Your Invisible Power, that we used in the Prosperity Plus 2 class. So it's a really great little book. Well, this was a woman that studied with Thomas Troward, even though he never had a student and would not take a student, okay? Her heart's desire was to study under him. That she was focused on. And she had been in written correspondence and met once with Troward. He said on numerous occasions an emphatic no to taking her on as a student. But he said she could write to him. You only need that little crack. She could write to him, okay? So she immediately started her correspondence, but never said a word he never said a word of her personally studying with him. Then after 2 months of corresponding, Troward posed a question in his letter, and this was the question. What do you suppose is the meaning of this verse in the 21st chapter of Revelations, verse 16. This is the verse. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs. The length and the breadth and the height of it are all equal. Well, she had absolutely no, can you imagine that? Does anyone here know? I mean, she had no idea what this verse could possibly mean. And so she started sending out these letters to everyone that she knew, to lawyers, doctors, priests, nuns, any kind of scholar, anyone that she could with this. And she received all these letters back, but none of them seemed to have answered her. Her intuition was guiding her. None of them answered this question. Intuitively, she knew this, but she didn't know the answer to the question. And so she memorized the passage, and she prayed and meditated on it, yet nothing came. So she began to search the city for some books that Troward had advised her to get. The answer would maybe be contained within one of those books. The books were out of print. So she went to bookstore after bookstore to find them. And so finally she came upon a little shop that had them, but only one copy. And the price was really high. As she was haggling with the clerk, the work of an astrologer caught her eye. And she jokingly said, I wonder if he would read my horoscope, to which the clerk was somewhat horrified that she would even say that. Why, no, madam, he is one of France's greatest astrologers. He does not read horoscopes. So despite this, something told her, something inside said, go see him anyway, which she did. In other words, she listened to her intuition because she didn't know. She didn't know what to say to him, really. She asked him if he would read her horoscope, to which he was aghast. And said, as the store clerk said, I do not read horoscopes. No, madam. With that, she could think of no other reason to stay. This is a true story, by the way, and she writes this in her book. With that, she could think of no other reason to stay, and her friend that she'd brought along for company was like halfway out the door. But she was hesitating to get up from the chair. And in that split second, the professor's cat, who never went to strangers, jumped on her lap. That caused the professor to have curiosity about her. And he said, Madam, my cat pleads for you. I also now feel an interest in your horoscope. And if you will give me the data, it will be my pleasure to write it out for you. Mind you, Genevieve did not want her horoscope, yet she was very happy when he agreed. He agreed to make an appointment with her for the following Saturday, a Sunday afternoon. So we might ask, what the heck does this have to do regarding the goal that she set, answering Troward's question? It appears to the logical, reasonable mind, nothing. Yet her intuition and had her agreed to this visit for the following Sunday. He arrived at the appointed time, and as she was handing him her data, an idea hit her. It had not been in her mind before that moment. But in this moment, it came to her. Ask the man about the Bible quote. She instantly asked him, and he said without pause, without even thinking, the city signifies the truth, and the truth is non-invertible. Every side from which you approach it is exactly the same. Genevieve wrote that. This is what she wrote. Intuitively and undoubtedly, I recognize this answer as the true one, and my joy knew no bounds, because I felt sure that this was the correct answer in my possession. Troward would accept me as his pupil in the fall. She was knowing this already. This was all intuition. She wrote the answer to Troward immediately, and here was his actual reply. Your answer is correct. I am beginning a course of lectures on the Great Pyramid here in London. If you wish to attend them, we'll be pleased to have you. And afterward, if you still wish to study with me, I think it can be arranged. Wow. That's in chapter 10 of Your Invisible Power. Intuitively, none of that made sense. It was all beyond reason. But that's the power of our intuition when we truly listen to it. It doesn't have to make sense to the reasonable mind. It's in connection with our imagination, which is so outside of the box. There is no box with our imagination. So the three other mental faculties we will look at right now in service of that expanded version of yourself. So the first one is perception. Your power of perception. Your power to decide what something means to you. You have probably heard this line from Hamlet, which I think is perfect. There is nothing bad or good. Thinking makes it so. Is that perfect? You may be thinking, now that's not true. There are bad things. There are bad things. There are car wrecks are bad. Wars are bad. Murder is bad. Lots of things are bad. And I'm not going to pretend that they're not bad, because they did feel bad. They are bad. But in this world in which we live, a lot of things feel wrong. And I believe we should work then on the opposite. Take what we feel is wrong and then allow Spirit to guide us, because we know perception. We perceive what's good and what's bad. But it's our thought, judging it. So what about if we took the thought and put it into an area where we could resolve whatever it was or look at it differently? In addition to that, beyond that, I want you to know that there is a presence. This is the part. There is a presence, a power, a life that knows no opposites within it. It is pure love. It's infinite love. Infinite possibilities. This is always with us, no matter what conditions are going on. Because remember, the conditions always change. But that presence, that divine Almighty that is within each and every person and all of life is changeless. It changes. And the more we can feel that presence, the more we can begin to understand that there is a power and life. Then the more that we can take any condition in life and generate good. Generate good right out of it. We can do that. We can choose to look at it in a different way. How you use your mental faculty of perception will either take you up the spiral of becoming or down, right down into more and more of these conditions that we don't want in our lives and circumstances that we have now. Have you seen that happen when you get in a cycle, or you see people who are in cycles and they continuously are spiraling down? Why? Because all these conditions are happening. No, because of the thoughts. The thoughts are generating those conditions.
Yes.
We have it backwards, and we believe the conditions are generating our thought. Wrong. It's wrong. So it's all through this mental faculty of how we perceive will either take us up or down. I love these words of Ernest Holmes in Creative Mind and Success. Limitation is an experience of the human race, but it is not the fault of God. It is the fault of our perception, how we perceive it. And I want to give, if you want, an assignment. When something goes amiss, this is a good one. I'm actually in the middle of doing this, and so I'm going in and out of it. When something goes amiss in your conditions this week, make a choice to have a new perception of it for 3 days. So have a new, it can be mine's an affirmation. So it's the opposite of what, it looks like the opposite of what's taking place. So for 3 days, I will focus on, and I invite you to do the same thing, focus on what it is that you truly want to manifest, experience in your life. And what do you think that does for 3 days? It stops the worry, the fear, the mind that goes absolutely crazy with something that takes place that is going to upset it, be a change, or anything like that. So during those 3 days, have the perception of good in this situation. And this will call into play the mental faculties we've already talked about. Imagination, intuition, and will. Keeping us on track. And then we move on. Just see what happens. Give it a shot. The heck, give it a shot. But always remember that, because you never know when something's going to happen, good or bad. But usually it's funny how the bad gets our attention. A whole lot more than the good. Sometimes. And then we move to memory. Our fifth additional sense is the mental faculty of memory. Most of us think we only have memory for backward events, that which has taken place before. But in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, the book, the Queen says to Alice, "So tell me what you did tomorrow." Alice laughs and says, "I can't tell you what I did tomorrow. Tomorrow hasn't happened." And the Queen, rather pityingly, said, "Well, it's a poor memory that only works one way." This is how you move into that. Your ability to memorize forward is very, very powerful. Once you imagine being the person living the dream that you want to dream. Get the vibration of what that feels like. Because it usually feels, it's something you want, so it usually feels good. Get the feeling of the living as what if, but actually believing. So you're memorizing a vibration of your desire. So you're remembering in the future, which has not yet come, but that vibration is creating right here and right now. So your ability to memorize, as I said, forward is very, very important. Once you imagine being the person living the life and loving the life that you are living, put it in your mind, I am the woman who blank. I am the man blank. Whatever you fill it in with what it is you want to experience, success, love, health, whatever it is, peace, whatever it is, already get what does that feel like being in the manifested reality. That's remembering forward. And while you're memorizing that frequency, guess what you are not doing? You cannot be on that frequency and vibrate. I don't already have it. Woo! Right? That's one, the mind loves that one. I don't really have it. I love Mary's reading with the age thing. Well, I'm too old, it's not going to happen. Wrong. That's what we believe, then that's what will happen. But if we think about what it is we wish to manifest, get that vibration, that's what we're moving into. That's what we will feel. There is not, I don't have it already in God. Right? Limitless possibilities. And there's a whole myriad of lies that we tell ourselves, and they're lies. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah. That's what the mind does, right? Blah, 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 blah. At that frequency of already having it, you can't feel bad about yourselves or your circumstances. You can't be feeling like you don't deserve the dream. Everyone deserves their dream. When you are memorizing that frequency of being the person that you truly, living the life that you would love to live. If you see yourself as that person, if you see yourself inside the picture, life will express as those ways. And in the words of Genevieve Barron, your mind is a center of divine operation, wanting to expand by means of you. It wants to expand through you. And it is a poor memory that only works in one direction. Isn't that great? A whole new concept. We can have a memory that works in both directions. It does work both ways. And our final additional sense of the mental faculties is reason. Now, reason is a really powerful faculty, but we have been trained to let our five senses run our games, run our lives. They control us. What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we sense, what we taste, we let that dictate what the decision should be. So if something is reasonable, it is because the world of five senses gave it permission to be reasonable, or everyone around you is in agreement. But that's the right thing to do. Yes. Common sense is called. What everyone else thinks and agrees to. If you want to do something, here's the way you have to do it. If you want to have something, here's the way that you have to get it. There's only one way. And we're talking about a limitless universe. We're talking about limitless possibilities. There is so much more than just one way. It's all in our reasoning. So when you begin to open up that reason, you may start to entertain other things that you or others might have thought unreasonable. Don't look outside yourself. Can we say that enough? Yes. For what is reasonable. This is what we do. We look outside of our indwelling divinity for what is reasonable. Don't look to those who have attained what you want to attain to support you in that understanding and thinking. That will attain it. It will not. It must come from within us. People can be inspirations for us if we choose that or not. It wasn't particularly reasonable for Genevieve to go see the professor who didn't do horoscopes, to ask him to do hers. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. She was being pulled by her intuition. She didn't even want the horoscope, but she knew she was supposed to be there. What she wanted was the answer to Troid's question. And there she went. There she went, against all common sense. It doesn't matter if others have different opinions of what you are being or doing. It matters what you think about it. Deep down, your vision. Then pour your life into that vision and unlock the powers in you that serve that vision. William James, an American philosopher and psychologist living in the time of Ernest Holmes, wrote this. He once said this: "A new idea is first condemned as ridiculous and then dismissed as trivial until finally it becomes what everyone knows." You see this happen all the time. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, Elliot. I'm thinking it too. Yeah, it's political. I can't talk about politics from the pulpit, so we'll just move on. Because, and it's about using that reasoning mind, and it's not in a box. It's outside of a box, whatever this box is that everyone talks about. Has anyone ever seen the box? No. It's like this box thing. I guess it's a way of thinking, contained, small. And we're talking expansive, and so we bring to a close our time this morning, and we open our minds and our hearts to this greater, infinite possibility that exists for us all the time, but in a higher way of using and remembering those 6 faculties that we can use, which are beyond the 5 senses: imagination, will, intuition, perception, memory, and reason. So imagine what your heart desires and keep a firm will to follow through, to take the actions necessary, and allow your intuition to guide, be that guiding force in your life. And let the power of perception be the true guide. Allow your memory to remember the vibration of what it feels like to be in your heart's desire, to be in what you want to manifest. Remember what it feels like, so important. And listen to that indwelling voice of reason. So follow the guidance of these 6 faculties, and you will move into living your authentic self and the life that you truly want to feel, live, all of it. Just be it. Immerse yourself in it. Thank you, and so it is.